We are currently living through an epidemic of NPC syndrome. Now, if you're not familiar with what NPC stands for, it's non-player character. You know when you're playing a game and there's those people in the background, they have no storyline, no autonomy, they're like fillers in the game for those of us who are actually playing, placeholders if you'd like. So many of us are just existing right now. We're not living our lives to the fullest, we're not making the most out of it, and we're not directing our own paths, our own story. The question then becomes well, how do you elevate yourself from NPC status to something higher, something with a lot more autonomy and more direction? Hey, I'm Adam if you're new here, and if you're returning then you know what's good. There's been a lot of talk about the main character energy, where you center yourself in your life, and I think it's a really great concept and sentiment, but I don't think it actually goes far enough. And that's what I want to get into in this story, is not just being a main character, because a character is still by default somebody you're playing, right? Somebody else has still written that character in that story, but instead to elevate to the level of the author, and how when you see yourself as the author of your own life, the writer if you would like, how things can become actualized and how you can live a fulfilled life with meaning and that is directed and governed by you. The first step for moving from character to author is actually questioning the paths that have been laid out in front of you, questioning whether you do have to go down these routes. The reason why this is the first step and why it's so important is because it allows you to become conscious of what's going on and therefore move from a state of false autonomy where you believe you're making your own decisions to actually making your own decisions, versus society being constructed in a way that makes you moving you into a direction that's actually not right for you. A prime example of this is the pipeline from school to retirement. Right, we are told that this is the plan, this is how the path will be laid out. You will go to school, you will sit in a classroom. You will go to uni, you will sit in your lecture theatres. And then you will go to work and potentially sit at a desk. And eventually, if you're lucky enough, you will get to retire one day and sit in a chair comfortably before you pass away. This is a story that has been crafted for many of us, and it's not right for everyone. And this is why some people are miserable, right? They're miserable because they feel like they made choices, they feel like they did the right thing, and yet they're not actually living the life that they want to. Now, the issue is not even that the path exists, because there are many positives and pros towards the points of this, right? Like being able to work and make your own money and provide value, and even being able to learn certain things within the context of school. But the issue is when you cannot question this path. The issue is when if you deviate, you're met with so much resistance that you start to think, whoa, what's actually going on here? I actually have my own experience with this, and it comes back down to when I was first going to university. I think I was 18 when you decide when you're going to university. And I wanted to take a gap year. And I've spoken about it before, and I actually wanted to do an apprenticeship in like the finance industry at that point. And everyone around me was like, no, absolutely not. You've got the grades, you have to go to university. This is the next step. You cannot take a break. You cannot deviate from the path. This is where you have to go. And I knew deep down I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want to do that next. That's not where I saw myself. And yet I folded. I allowed the pressure of the story that had been written for me to guide me down a path, and it wasn't right. And I did end up leaving. And I just said, you know what? At this point, I am breaking free of whatever you're telling me that I need to do here. And I'm leaving. And I did that. And it was one of the best decisions I've made. And it's not that I regret anything. The only thing I do regret is not allowing myself to forge my own path. But the things I did, I don't actually regret them in themselves. So allow yourself to be conscious of what is going on and the things that are influencing your decisions, or that are pointing you in a direction that you don't feel is right. Question them. Always question it. The second step is about surrounding yourself with other authors. Time and time again, we have heard that you are the sum of the people around you. It's impossible to be around people for hours every day or through hours every week or every month. You talk to them, you engage with them, you share in their experiences, and yet not to be influenced by them. So if you are influenced by NPCs, you may see your life start to take that form and that shape as well. There are only exceptions. There's some people who have main character energy, but they like to surround themselves with NPCs, and I think that's a little bit weird in itself and red flag. But anyway, so try to identify some of the characteristics in people that align with the author, right? These people sometimes can seem even obnoxious or standoffish or combative when you first encounter them, if you're not already on your own journey to being an author, because they seem to deviate so much from how you're told that you should live and how you should see yourself, that when you first come across them, they can be like, oh, not sure about you. But as well as these maybe negative appearing traits, these people are very optimistic, and sometimes to a point where you think it's quite sick. You're like, no, the world's falling apart. But they are trying to see what they can control, what they can write into their own story, and what they can actualize. That is where they like to focus their energy versus Others who sometimes focus too much on what they cannot control and allow that to dictate their emotions and then the actions they take or don't take. So find your authors, and that will mean that you have to go out of your comfort zone and talk to people that you don't usually talk to and frequent spaces that you don't usually go to, and actually be open and willing to talk to people whose ideas may differ from your own. The next thing is all about not waiting for special events to do things. We have convinced ourselves that there are only certain times of the year that we can do certain things, right? That we can put on that dress that we love, or buy ourselves this special thing, or go to this place. We've convinced ourselves that these are left for a select period of time and the rest of the time is just a lull, almost But what if when writing your story, you considered every day a special event? What if you wrote that into your story? Just by waking up and being here was enough to celebrate, was enough to put on that amazing dress and those heels and go out and just feel amazing and beautiful about yourself. Or to go to the shop and buy those flowers that will brighten up your room. You don't have to wait till Valentine's Day or this event. Every day that you want to do something like that, that you have the means to without, throwing yourself into financial ruin. That's not what I'm saying. Do these things. Why wait until a birthday to celebrate and meet with people, right? And meet and have an event or even a picnic or anything like this. Don't allow calendars that are crafted by other people to dictate when you celebrate life, when you decide to feel the best about yourself, bring people in, engage with others. Write your own events. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the boundaries that you may actually face. Because believe it or not, even the writer has to work within certain boundaries and parameters, right? They have to use the tool of language and adhere to the rules of language to an extent. Yes, they may push it, but if they go so far that nobody understands what they're being said, the story doesn't make sense. Well, at least not to anybody who's trying to engage with it. They still have to write, whether it be in ink or whether they're typing. They still have to publish it, and it still has to be received by other humans, other people. So there are still some boundaries that you're operating within. All that to mean is the story that you are writing for yourself will take place in this very real world. So it becomes, how can you optimize for the outcomes that you want within this real world? How can you make sure that your story is as fruitful and fulfilling as possible? Well, in part, I believe it has to do with being able to negotiate those tools that you have, whether they be your emotional intelligence, your physical strength, your educational background. All of these things, how can you leverage them within your story to get the outcomes you want? For example, if part of your story involves making a certain amount of money and progressing within a certain career, it means that you'll have to bring certain traits and have certain activities, if you'd like, to get there. I.e., in this period, you may have to be more assertive, perhaps even disagreeable when you are negotiating your salary. You can't just be like, yep, cool, whatever you want, I'll take. You have to start bringing in characteristic traits that will allow you to succeed in this place, this realm, if you would like, this scene even. You may have to be more showy than you're used to, right? Forthcoming in your accomplishments, your competencies, so that the others who make the decision about this know you, know what you're capable of, and know what you've been doing. However, those same traits may not be appropriate when you change scenes and you're interacting with the people in your life in a romantic or platonic sense. Those sorts of relationships where this level of disagreeableness may not actually make sense, right, when you're writing this part of your story. And so you want to draw on other traits that you have, other experiences to make the most out of this. And that is just the reality of the world. And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. We can see it as a challenge, as a way to develop our characters, right, as we write them out and as we explore their backstory and, what their future will look like. The final thing I want to speak about is actually indulging in your creative pursuits. Now, one of the hallmarks of a great writer or an author is their creative energy, if you like, right? Their ability to take you on a journey and to craft a story of meaning that connects with those around. And so this is why indulging in your creative pursuits and your creative energy is so important, that you feed that so that you can feed it back into your story. Allow yourself as the author to have creative freedom. Allow your mind to wander and to ponder actually on things. Write, paint, sing, make content. Allow yourself to be enriched so that you may consider alternative lives for yourself, right? So that your story can be as far-reaching as necessary and as dynamic as it needs to be for you. I've used this analogy of the author really to illustrate that we do have some control over our lives, and often more so than we believe, and that it's worth tapping into and seeing ourselves as that if we want to live more fulfilled lives. We shouldn't wait for others to control our lives. Where possible, we should seek autonomy and write our own stories. And that's all this is really about. I'll see you in the next one.